What is up, Swanky fam? Welcome back to the channel. I am Luke. I'm here with Reed this week, and we are going to be talking about the Ultiworld World Rankings that just came out. They're putting Calvin Heimburg as the #1 disc golfer in the world coming out of 2020. We're about to dive into that. First, I have to do the YouTube thing and say, be sure to subscribe. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers. We're doing a huge giveaway very soon, so be sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell so that you guys can see when our videos go up on Mondays and Fridays. And we're going to jump right into it. Reed, who is the #1 player in the world in your opinion, and why is it Calvin Heimburg?
You ask an intriguing question, Luke. Boy, Calvin, props to him. He's really come out this year, and being on top of this list is a huge step for him. I don't think going into this year he was considered a top player, but obviously coming out of this year, he's undebatably top 4 now, right? But
I would say so.
Luke, I'm gonna have to say that I don't think Calvin Heimburg is the #1 player in the world.
Oof, bold. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of bold. You know what's even more bold? My prediction as the #1 player in the world.
Ooh.
You never get tired of hearing his name. Paul McBeth. Paul McBeth, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I can't shake the fact that even in what looked like a down year for Paul McBeth, he still only placed outside of the top 5 one time. One time. And it was I think he was still top 10. I think he came in 10th at D-Glow, and that was his only finish outside of the top 10. And for Heimburg, he had a few outside the top 5. He stayed within the top 10, top 11 most of the time. But just the one finish outside the top 10. He's just so consistent all year. I don't know how you go away from him.
And I can't help but agree. Everybody kind of felt like this was an off year, quote unquote, for Paul. And he still showed out just insanely. Obviously, Ultiworld has this algorithm, and you can read more about it. We'll link their article in the description. If we're talking about who has the most skill going into 2021, it's hard to argue that it wouldn't be somebody like Paul McBeth. But I want to play devil's advocate, and I want to give Calvin some credit.
Lay it down, yeah.
All-around player. His stats across the board are the most consistent, probably out of any players. He played 14 events this season. All of them were Pro Tour. He played one Silver Series event, but he grinded the Pro Tour this year, and he came outside of top 10 one time at Idlewild. He placed 11th. And I think I don't know if they weighted certain tournaments differently, but he placed higher than Paul in USDGC and in the Pro Tour Championship. And I think that might have put his, I don't know if they weight those tournaments differently, but those were the big banger tournaments of the year. And Calvin Heimburg showed up, and he played that consistently, played his consistent game all the way through to the end of the season. I think we saw Paul's putting this year for Paul McBeth, I will say, was not as consistent as somebody like Calvin Heimburg. Calvin Heimburg's, I don't have a circle 1 percentage in front of me, but I know it was insane. He was hitting circle 2 putts. He's got a good sidearm, got a good backhand. I think he has the most potential coming into 2021. He's a young guy. How old is Calvin Heimburg?
22, 20. He's young. I think he's around Eagles' age, but I think he graduated college, so he can't be younger than 23, 24.
Gotcha, yeah. So he's a young guy, and he's got all the potential in the world. I think if he really trained this offseason, 2021 would be his pop-off year. So I think 2020 was his sort of coming out year. 2021 could be his pop-off year, and if somebody has the potential to just dominate this year, I think it is Calvin Heimburg, because he showed consistency across the board. He just has to bring it up a tiny level to be #1 in my mind. But coming out of 2020, he was extremely wildly consistent. Like I said, 2nd place at USDGC, 4th place at the Pro Tour Open Championship, 1st place at the Memorial, 1st place at Jonesboro, which is an extremely, extremely difficult tournament. He didn't play a single B tier this year. He played all Pro Tour events. I guess he had the Las Vegas Challenge, which he came in 10th in, but that's an A tier as well, and that's a big one. I don't know. I have a really hard time. I want to play devil's advocate and say, no, Calvin Heimburg is the #1 player in the world right now. That's really hard to say, but I think it could be said that Calvin Heimburg has the potential to be the #1 player in 2021. I think if he pops off this year, it would solidify him as being the #1 ranked player.
Yeah, I mean, you make some great points. I really think that the thing that stands out the most about Calvin Heimburg when you're watching him play, he just doesn't make mistakes. Like, his game isn't flashy. He makes big putts. He hits lines, he's unfazed all the time by no matter what's going on. Like, you saw it, I think the most clear example of that is USDGC. I think it was round 3, and it was just a deluge, like a rainstorm, and Calvin is out there just that's when Calvin really stepped up. He took over the tournament, and before that he was just playing his game, but everybody else is falling apart in the rain, and Calvin's shooting an incredible round. It's like it didn't even bother. And you see these other players get fazed by stuff like that. You see Ricky just fall apart in the last round, or the back 9 of the last round of the MVP. He just fell apart. He had the lead. He had Paul by 3 strokes, and he just fell apart. He was even.
I think we've seen that from Paul this year a lot. I mean, how many times did Paul lose a tournament going into the second round or third round?
True,
and he's in first place, or at least on the lead card. At least 2 tournaments he lost. He went into the last round in first place, either the last round or the second round. I can't remember. I know it happened at Waco, and then one other tournament
Idlewild
at least.
too, yeah.
Going into now Idlewild, losing to somebody from the Chase card.
Yep.
Which again, he's Paul McBeth. I can't say anything bad about him, but.
And it almost happened at the
Heimburg
DD Open too. Calvin almost caught him in the DD Open. I think McBeth was 1 under for the round on the final round to finish 24 down, and Calvin finished 23 down or something. So that was super close to being another one that he gave up down the stretch.
Yeah. So you have to take things into account, like Paul coming off an injury, things like that. Paul might have not been at 100%, probably wasn't at 100% in the 2020 season, and he's still debatably better than Calvin Heimburg. I just feel like Calvin really grinded this year, and despite the grind and everything he's been going through as such a young player, showing up the way he did and playing as consistently as he did, he's got an all-around awesome game. And I think if he steps it up a little bit this year, he is the #1 player in the world.
It's true, yeah. I guess the question is, what are we asking? Are we asking who was the best in 2020, or who is the best going into 2021? And if you ask me, I still think, despite the putting woes and despite some of the lackluster final rounds, I still think Paul was the best player in 2020. But the argument definitely could be made, especially since he didn't have the greatest performance at USDGC or the Pro Tour Championship. The argument could definitely be made that Calvin has the edge going into 2021.
All right, guys, so what do you think? Is Calvin Heimburg the #1 player of 2020 going into 2021? If not, who do you think is? Comment down below who is the #1 player in the world right now. Who do you think is going to show out this season? Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay swanky.
Stay swanky.